minutes. We have a quorum, and most of the bills are not controversial, so we will give the other 3 or 4 another minute or 2.
Thank you, Supervisor.
You're welcome.
He's on his way. I said Senator Simon Ayer is on his way.
Oh, do you know the music? I'll do that.
Hi, how are you?
Okay, how are you?
Oh, hanging in there. What it feels like you're hanging on to the air.
They should not be, but I'll check. Tanya, is anyone in the waiting room? Is anyone in the waiting room on there? Because they wouldn't have the access. She, no. No one, okay. Okay.
There's a different Zoom link for every hearing and every session. So
Yeah,
they
but
wouldn't have that.
No, they would have this one.
Yeah.
They're not in there.
Okay, now that you start the YouTube stream.
Yeah, we're good to go.
Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Education, Health, and Environmental Committee, which you know, and for the people streaming, this is our first in-person session. It's a voting session. We have a list of bills, departmental bills. We put them on because we didn't think there was much controversy or much debate or questions during the original hearing. So with that, Senator Hester, for a number of reasons, is linked electronically, and she will be participating from there. First bill, 310, committee staff. Ms. Goodman, I believe.
That's me. Senate Bill 310, Election Law, Campaign Finance Entities Termination. This departmental bill makes changes to the campaign finance entity termination requirements. The bill eliminates the date of payment of the final debt or other obligation of a campaign finance entity as criteria in determining the beginning of the 8-year period within which a campaign finance entity of an individual must terminate and file a final campaign finance report. Secondly, the bill requires the state administrator of elections within 6 months of the date of required termination to provide a notice to the responsible officers and the candidate associated with the campaign finance entity of the date by which the entity is required to pay certain debts, dispose of certain assets, and terminate and file a campaign finance report. There are no amendments, and there was no opposition at the hearing.
Okay. Chair will entertain a motion.
Move favorable, Mr. Chairman.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to appear to vote. Not hearing any opposition, will anybody be voting no on this? Then make it unanimous, other than Senator Ellis and Senator Carrozza. Okay, 310 will move favorable to the floor. Now, originally we thought second reader reports would be delivered on Friday to the floor. Because of, obviously, the passing of Senator Miller, the Friday session is not going to be doing second readers, so it'll probably be reported next week because of those changing conditions. Okay, let's move to 343.
Senate Bill 343. This is a departmental bill from the Department of Natural Resources, which prohibits a person from catching shrimp for commercial purposes unless the person first obtains a license from the Department of Natural Resources. The bill also authorizes the department to adopt regulations, 1, governing any aspect of the shrimp fishery, and 2, establishing and implementing a pilot program related to fishing for shrimp. The regulations may authorize the department to establish for the shrimp fishery, by public notice, closed areas, catch limits, seasons, size limits, gear restrictions, and reporting requirements.
Again, I'll entertain a motion.
Move favorable.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Discussion or questions of council? Again, I think this came up the other day, and there was really no controversy. This is a new fishery. That being said, to simplify this, will anybody be voting no on this bill? Yes, sir. Senator Simon Ayer.
Did that amendment get in there to change the title to the Forrest Gump Act? No? Okay, sorry about that.
We're keeping track of those. Not the amendments, but the jokes. Okay, seeing no opposition being voiced, we will record this as unanimous, except for Senator Carrozza, who was absent. Senator Ellis, this is on the new shrimp fishery. There was no opposition. It was one of the departmental bills. Will you be voting yes? Yes. Okay. Again, that is a unanimous vote, other than one member. So let's skip 347 and come back to that if we could at the end, and I'll tell you why in a moment. Let's go to 349. Committee counsel.
Okay, Senate Bill 349 is a departmental bill from the Maryland Department of the Environment, which makes changes to the statute governing the Maryland Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund to conform state law to federal law. The bill increases the maximum term limit for loans made from the fund and increases the maximum amount of loan subsidies that can be issued to disadvantaged communities. In addition, the bill increases the time period after the completion of a drinking water facility when annual principal and interest payments begin. Finally, the bill clarifies the authorized uses of the fund to include uses authorized or required by relevant provisions of the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act.
Okay. Again, this was brought before us last week with very little controversy. I'll entertain a motion.
Move favorable.
It's been moved favorable. Is there a second? Senator Patterson seconds it. Discussion. Discussion or questions about this bill? We're looking at Senate Bill 349. Seeing no question or comments, can I assume that means there's no opposition? That being said, and seeing no hands, we'll rule this unanimous, other than Senator Carrozza, to take to the floor. Okay, let's move to 352.
All right, Senate Bill 352 is a departmental bill from the Department of Agriculture, which repeals provisions that make multiflora rosa a nuisance weed that must be managed.
Well, that's pretty straightforward. Again, I'll entertain a motion.
Move favorable.
It's been moved favorable. Second, Senator Lamb. Discussion. Discussion. Seeing none, if no objection, we will list this as unanimous vote, minus Senator Carrozza, who was not here. Seeing no objection to that, that passes unanimously. We'll excuse me, let's go back to 347. While this was heard in a departmental bill, there may be controversy about it. So after it's explained, I will entertain conversation and discussion. If people are ready to vote, we can do it, but I'm not pressing a vote today on this bill. You know, public notification has been somewhat debated about what is appropriate, doing advertisements, et cetera. So I don't want to take a lot of time, but I wanted to have this bill in front of us and the opportunity to discuss it, ask questions, et cetera. So with that, Madam Counsel.
Okay. Senate Bill 347 is a departmental bill from the Department of the Environment that modifies public participation and notice requirements for a number of licensing, permitting, and regulatory promulgation sections of the Environment article. Generally, the bill authorizes 1, public hearings and meetings to be held using teleconference or internet-based conferencing technology, unless an in-person meeting is specifically required by federal law or is requested by a person, and 2, public notices to be published electronically on the Maryland Department of the Environment's website. The bill applies to authorizations issued for controlling air emissions and water pollution discharges, drilling of oil and gas wells, non-coal surface mining, constructing and operating solid waste facilities, sewage sludge utilization, and activities that would disturb Maryland wetlands and waterways.
Okay, if you looked in your file electronically or hard copy, they were favorable by a number of people. There was also favorable with amendments from the Center for Progress Reform, raising questions about changing the policy of ads in general circulation newspapers. So
Yeah, they also raised questions about authorizing meetings to be held entirely by teleconference. In their testimony, they suggested that a couple of different things. So one thing the bill does is it authorizes these teleconference meetings unless somebody specifically requests an in-person hearing. The favorable with amendments suggested essentially requiring both. The bill also authorizes right now in these interested persons list, which happen under certain kind of permitting and things where you can get yourself added to this list so that you'll be mailed notice about changes or updates in the status of a permit. The bill sort of, right now the law says that has to be a mailing list. The bill would be a little more general and sort of open up the possibility that list could be an email list. It's not specifically, it doesn't say it has to be by email. But the favorable with amendments written testimony suggested that it be clear that you could request that those notices be sent by mail. And then the last thing is this bill in a number of places allows notices for different permits and different regulations to just be put on the department's website. Instead of right now, it's required to be in a newspaper of general circulation. And again, the favorable with amendments testimony would like the newspapers to still carry the notices, in addition to going up on the website.
Questions about the bill? Senator Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So would that be 2 newspapers, 3, or how many are we talking?
So that's defined in the current law, and I believe right now the requirement is just 1 of general circulation.
So would that have to be a recognizable newspaper? Could it be just a paper that go out to 200 people?
I mean, I think a lot of these notices right now sort of go into Daily Record, which nobody, well,
Okay.
it's questionable how generally circulated those newspapers are anyhow. So that's one of the questions.
Yeah, it talks about general circulation in the geographical area. So, in the DC region, for example, the Post could be one of those. And how wide is the circulation? Doesn't include Charles County, or in Baltimore, the Baltimore Sun going out to Hartford County, Washington County. I think it's a fairly soft definition.
Okay, yeah. One follow-up question.
Sure.
The interested person list, is this an ongoing list? What kind of list is it?
So this is, it's on page 6 of the bill. This is for the construction of a new source of air pollution. So basically the way it works is that the department has to, they have to issue sort of a general notice, and through that general notice, anybody can request to be added to this interested persons list. Okay. So I believe the interested persons list is specific to that permit. So if this is for, a permit to construct a new factory or whatever that's going to pollute, potentially emit air pollution. So if you're interested in whatever it is that's potentially coming into your neighborhood, you could get added to this list to find out about that specific facility.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Riley, followed by Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a subject is very ongoing because we discussed it in the Anne Arundel County Council more than 11 years ago. But this bill specifically refers to state agencies. It has nothing to do with county or municipal.
Correct. So this is specific to the Maryland Department of the Environment's process.
And Mr. Chair, just a comment, this issue may be coming back to us. It's a lot of folks in government object to the cost without much benefit. So it could be a reoccurring issue, and I appreciate this bill coming forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, we in fact have had this bill in some way, shape, or form in multiple ways. So the committee has had to deal with it, and sometimes we've punted, sometimes we've clarified, sometimes we've killed them. So, yes. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wondering whether the department has responded to this testimony asking for an amendment.
They have not. And I will say a lot of the amendments that are being requested would, the department could already be doing things on their website or doing things by teleconference in addition to what's already required in statute. So if the committee were to adopt all of the amendments proposed in that testimony, it would essentially nullify the bill. Because what the department is asking for is permission to do this stuff instead of the things that they're currently required to do.
And the amendment requested is in addition.
Right.
Which is
what they could
current.
do right now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, are you done?
I'm done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Trying to turn off my mic.
That being said, on some of these, there is some middle ground. In other words, there could be amendments. For example, while it gets rid of newspapers of broad circulation, it says people, they can be put on a list, and if they contact the agency can contact them, but it's not definitive that it has to be done by mail?
Right. So the current law says it has to be done by mail. The bill is silent as to how it could be done. Could, for example, amend it to say that they would have to offer the option of mail. So the person, when they sign up for that list, could specify, I want to receive it by email or I want to receive it by USPS.
And let me ask this, and I'll open it up to others, Senator Washington. When the transition is made, how does the transition take place? In other words, it's there one day and it's gone the next. How do people get notified that they can be on a call list or a mail list?
That is a good question. I don't know. We'd have to clarify that with the department.
Okay. Senator Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have some concerns broadly. I think we've come up with a number of these. taking away in-person options for people. We understand there's a digital divide, et cetera. So we have to balance efficiencies, but also recognize, and I think we've really learned that this year, have to be very cautious about taking away options for people who may not have access to broadband, who are focused on other things. I mean, this whole notion of if you ask to be on the list, if you don't know about the list, you don't really have an opportunity to ask. But my question is more specifically a concern and seek clarification on lines 15 through 23, which seems
What
to
page,
be,
Senator?
I'm sorry, page 3, lines 15 through 23, where it seems it's authorizing for there to not be in-person public or informational meetings under some conditions. And so I'd like to understand, because it's seeming that the federal can set an emergency, it seems like the state, but it also says that the local jurisdiction or government seems to be able to determine whether or not a hearing is eligible or is able to be held. Am I understanding that? That there's
Right,
a rather
so-
broad exemption?
So it would have to be a formal declaration of a state of emergency by the local government. But yes, so the idea is that if there is a state of emergency declared for the, whatever the region is where the permit hearing would otherwise be held, that the department would not have to offer an in-person meeting or
Right.
hearing.
And states of emergency are, we're sort of in one now, correct? And there's all different types
Right.
of states of emergency. Oh, thank you. Again, I think this is a rather broad, it seems rather a broad discretion here in this section. Might need to be tightened up.
Further questions or discussion?
It's not, hold on, Mr. Bailey.
Madam Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Following up on Senator Washington's statement, a state of emergency could be a big snowstorm, could be a weather event. And it seems to me that this bill would allow for the cancellation of a hearing for forever, as opposed to until the snow is plowed or until the derecho goes away or something. And as she said, I wonder if that's too broad, because the neighborhood really might want to weigh in on something. Isn't that so?
Other comments or questions? I didn't ask or entertain a motion yet. I wanted to start some discussion to see where we are and if there are some ideas. What I would suggest, if there's no objection, is to hold this bill till either the next voting session, and people should look it over and look at the testimony. And then if you have some amendments to tighten it up, I've heard that from at least 3 people, either offer them to Ms. Morton or to the amendment room. And, just let her know if you even do the amendment room, let April know that you're waiting on some amendments so we know when to schedule it, okay? And again, the only reason I put it on, I knew there could be some debate or question about this because public notification is always a bit of a bête noire. So with that, if there's no objection, we will come back to this at a subsequent voting session.
And I want to clarify something really quickly. The list of interested persons, it's actually on page 9, and I was wrong. It's not related to the air emissions permits. It's for the appropriation or use of waters, dams, or reservoirs, and for uses involving non-tidal wetlands. So it's pages 8 and 9.
Okay, so that bill we'll revisit at a later date. So that concludes the voting session for today. I want to talk a little bit about tomorrow.